All right, today we're diving into something pretty intense, a devastating condition that gets its name from the very rivers that are supposed to give life to communities. It's a wild story about a microscopic parasite with an incredibly complex life, and unfortunately, it leaves a trail of darkness behind it. So, let's jump right in.
So think about this for a second. It all kicks off with a bite from a tiny black fly. But how on earth does that one simple event spiral into one of the leading causes of infectious blindness in the world? That's the big question, right? And it's the central mystery we're going to unravel together today. Okay, first things first, let's get a handle on just how big of a deal this is. And trust me, this isn't some rare, isolated illness. We're talking about a massive public health crisis with a truly staggering human cost.
Onchocerciasis is a huge threat across big chunks of Africa. We're talking eastern, central, and western regions. And it's not just in Africa. It's also gained a foothold in the Americas, with cases showing up in places like Guatemala, Mexico, and Venezuela. But, the impact goes way beyond just health. It's an economic disaster too, quietly eroding the ability of entire communities to work and forcing so many to abandon fertile riverside land.
So, the biggest clue is right there in the name. River blindness. The disease is completely tied to geography. It just thrives in communities that are close to fast-flowing rivers and streams. Why? Well, because that's the absolute perfect breeding ground for the black flies that carry it. And get this is a really key point. Humans are the only host for this parasite.
Okay, so we know where the disease strikes. Now let's meet the culprits behind it all. And we're not talking about just one. We're looking at a real villainous duo here. A parasitic worm and its tiny, winged accomplice.
And here they are, our two key players. The main perpetrator is a parasitic worm with a mouthful of a name, Onchocerca volvulus. But it can't just hop from one person to the next. It needs a ride. That's where its accomplice, the female black fly, comes in. She's the vector, the one doing all the dirty work of spreading the parasite around.
Now you have to brace yourself for this next part, because it is absolutely wild. While the parasite's offspring are microscopic, the adult female worm can grow to be 50 centimeters long. That's about half a meter, coiled up inside the human body. It's incredible. The male, by comparison, is way, way smaller. So you've got this giant worm and this tiny fly. How do they even coordinate? Well, they're locked together in this incredibly complex and honestly vicious life cycle. It's like a perfectly executed master plan that allows the parasite to thrive and spread with devastating efficiency. Let's break this cycle down. Step 1, an infected fly bites a person and injects these tiny larvae. Step 2, those larvae grow up into adult worms inside their new human host. Step 3, the adults reproduce, releasing millions of new microscopic larvae called microfilariae, which then spread all through the person's skin. And then, Step 4, a new uninfected fly comes along for a bite, picks up those microfilariae, and boom, the whole cycle starts all over again. Now, the timeline for all this is just fascinating. Inside the fly, everything happens super fast. The larvae are ready to infect a new person in just 6 to 8 days. But once they're inside a human, the parasite plays the long game. We're talking 8 to 10 months for those larvae to mature into adults, and you might not even see severe symptoms for a whole year after that initial bite. It's an incredibly patient invader. And it's this long, slow-burn invasion that really puts the human body under siege. The key thing to understand here is that the real damage isn't just from those big adult worms. It's actually from the millions of microscopic offspring they produce, and the body's own reaction to them. So your immune system goes into overdrive trying to fight back, right? This creates a chronic inflammation that leads to these painful nodules and lesions under the skin. But the true tragedy, the absolute worst part, is what happens when those millions of tiny microfilaria start to migrate. When they reach the eyes, they get trapped, and that's what directly causes the intense sensitivity to light, the constant tearing, and ultimately the irreversible blindness that gives this disease its name. Okay, I know, it's a devastating disease. But the story doesn't end in despair. Medical science and public health initiatives are absolutely fighting back, working hard to diagnose, treat, and control the spread of river blindness. And the process for diagnosing it is pretty direct. Doctors start by looking for those classic symptoms. Then they'll check the patient's history. Have they spent time living near the kinds of rivers where these black flies thrive? The final confirmation, the smoking gun, comes from actually finding the microfilaria in a small skin sample. The strategy to combat river blindness is really a two-pronged attack.
For treatment, a drug called ivermectin has been a total game changer. It's incredibly effective at killing the microfilaria, the little larvae causing the worst symptoms. The major limitation, though, is that it doesn't kill the long-lived adult worms. And that's why the other side of the attack, control measures, is so critical. Things like reducing blackfly populations and preventing bites are essential to breaking the cycle of transmission for good.
And this brings us to our final big question. We have the knowledge, we have the tools. Ivermectin can stop the symptoms, and vector control can stop the spread. So with a coordinated and sustained global effort, is it really possible that river blindness could one day join smallpox as a disease we only read about in history books? That's something really powerful to think about. Thanks so much for joining me today.